What's up, guys? The Lazy Goldmaker here. And while I'm logged into retail, as some of you can see, I'm sitting on my burrito sword. This is a rare sight these days. I've not forgotten about retail. I'm just having too much fun on plastic. But we are going to talk a little bit about the pre-patch and some of the opportunities and some of the opportunities you can look for, because that's obviously what we're focused on right now. Now, in general, at this point of BFA Shadowlands, there's not many opportunities for short-term gold making. I'm getting some sales, like I'm selling some legendaries still, surprisingly. Even sold some on my last repost scan. Not sure why. Pre-patch is coming like next week or this week, and there's a good chance that legendaries are going to be disabled because some of them are being turned into talents. Don't think we've seen any on beta or on PTR that were apparently not disabled, so we'll see. 262 gear can still work, but like we're just like it's a month left in the expansion, so there's no point in entering any endgame markets. But this is also a time of some great opportunities. And we'll see if I can find those in my ledger, because at the end of BFA, I made some of my best investments ever. We'll see if I did that on this realm. Hopefully I did. And I was buying up a bunch of Island Expedition gear, right? Island Expedition gear. Yeah, we have them. So look at the profits here, like 60k profit total, 22 per item, 70,000 gold profit. Just absolutely incredible, right? And I invested in this on a lot of different realms, and this is one of those opportunities that can be here at this late point of the expansion. And what we're looking for then is items that are generated by people doing content that's in the current expansion, Shadowlands content that they won't be doing once Dragonflight rolls around. And then we're also obviously looking for items that are still going to be in demand, or potentially just as in demand in Dragonflight as they are now. And what does that mean? Well, it means it has to be cosmetic items. It's transmog, it's mounts, it's that kind of stuff. Like legendary is obviously going to be terrible because there's no point in buying them. Although you might be able to transmog white pieces. I don't know how that's going to work. But legendaries are awful. 262 guard probably bad as well because they're a very expensive way of getting those appearances. But transmog, mounts, pets, those are the kinds of items that you'll be looking for. Sadly, mounts is usually the best one. I bought a lot of BFA World Drop mounts as well. I'm not sure if I bought any of those in this realm. And I made profit off of those as well. Not as much actually as I did with the with the Island Expedition gear for whatever reason. But I made money with those as well. We can take a look here. No, I just flipped some Abyssal Fragments, which is essentially a mount. Made about 40,000 gold off of those. And I could have bought more if I'd waited to sell them because they're 4,000 gold. But for Shadowlands, there's not that many mount items. There's not that many. I think the closest one is like the Strange Goop or whatever it's called for the I think it's Strange Goop. Yeah, Strange Goop. For the mount in Sereth Mortis, but you don't actually do that from Shadowlands content, so people have to target farm it. So as you can see, it's already pretty expensive. For other mounts, the only other sorts of like droppable mounts, like I went through all of the mounts added in Shadowlands. There's not a single directly tradable mounts. The only other ones, I covered those in my earlier videos. This is one from Protoform Synthesis and the Lattices. I think some of these are potentially good investments. The lattices that are used for mounts, but these are now region-wide because they stack. So you might have to wait a while, but on the other hand, it's the long-term potential is there at least. It's there, but I'm not sure if I'm going to buy any lattices. If I did, then I'd focus on the ones that are for a mount. And those are in my old video on this, which you can find in the it should be linked in the top corner and also in the video description. So that's nice. So the last group then, or the next group I wanted to cover is Transmog. And there's a lot of different transmog, right? Obviously you want to focus on stuff that's generated by current content. One great market, but that's already in the past, is the Korthia Shoulders. We already know that Kchak, another YouTuber, if you're not familiar with him, you should be. I'm gonna link his video or his channel in the description because he's a genius at multi-helm flipping. But he bought out all of the Korthia shoulders across all of EU because he has a lot of accounts and has been manipulating that market. And people aren't doing Korthia right now, so they're not actually that cheap. But anything that drops from Sereth Mortis is a much better opportunity, and you can actually search those up. And I actually did here with the item finder on Wowhead, which you do click here, and then you can check for a specific patch, 9.2.0 for instance, and you can look for bind on equip items, which means they're tradable, and you can see what exists here. And there's a bunch of different items. Obviously you're looking for something with like a zone drop or a specific drop that can be traded. So there's a lot of nice items here. The Varuth's Guillotine, a very well-known transmog. This one is pretty cool and very rare. It can be farmed. It can be bought in the auction house. Not sure what it's going for these days, but it's also a server specific. Yeah, it's 400k for one, and then 500k. So this isn't cheap. This isn't cheap. People might have already started buying it because it was higher than DB Market. But there's other items as well. Blade of Cartel All. I'm not sure. Blade of Cartel. Distinguished Blade of Cartel All. Yeah. Here we have something else. That you can potentially. This is just a cosmetic. This is cheaper. You can buy some of these and throw them in the bank. Down the line they might be worth a lot. And you can do the same thing for other patches. I think the current patch is the best option. Gives you a few items to, not that many items to search through, but you can look here for items, particularly weapons, shoulders, helmets. Those are like typically the most impactful slots for how your character looks. They're the ones that people are usually most willing to buy. So look through some of these, check them out in game, see if they look cool, and consider buying up a chunk of them across realms if you can find them cheap. That's what you do with Transmog. Now, pets are usually a little bit risky. The last group of cosmetic items. I've never focused on investing in pets because they can be resold. Everyone can just recage them and sell them again. Buying up cheap ones can be good long term, but it depends on inflation. Like with BFA launch, we saw deflation, so a lot of pets actually went down in value, but they've now gone up again. Pets are more risky than most other stuff, in my opinion, because they are so easily resold always. So I don't like those too much, but you can obviously do the same thing here. And look for battle pets. I think you can look for battle pets here. Somewhere in the filters, and that's going to give you maybe it's another database for battle pets. Either way, you can find the list of battle pets added in Shadowlands, and you can look at the prices of those and see if any of those are from like world drop sources, from mount drops, or from mob drops, or anything else that's like this is something that people are doing now that they won't be doing in the future. If it's something that requires like a lot of effort going into target farming, that's also something that might go up in value because people aren't going to be target farming specific Shadowlands content as much when Dragonflight rolls around, because it's going to be a new expansion. What's that mean? It means that new materials, new items are going to sell really, really well, and most farmers will be focusing on those items. And that brings us to the last thing you could cover, like materials. But there has been situations in the past where buying materials at the end, or like the last week, the first week of a new expansion, materials are usually pretty cheap from the old expansion. But I don't think that matters much for Shadowlands. And that's because most of the items, there's just not particularly many crafted items that matter once Shadowlands is in the past. So in earlier expansions, we've had like crafted mounts, crafted large amounts of crafted transmog, or anything else. Like you have the Vial of the Sands supply chain is just a huge amount of items. You have the Ruby Panthers and the rockets from Mist of Pandaria. But there's really nothing like that from Shadowlands. Like most of the crafting professions are fairly barren outside of the power increasing items. There are a couple of like cosmetic helmets and stuff, but there's just not enough of them. So I don't think any of the Shadowlands materials are really worth investing in long term. Obviously, you can pick some up if you're planning to craft some cosmetics, and if you have the space in the guild bank and a lot of gold, then yeah, sure, buy a couple 100,000 worth of materials and just chuck them in there for a rainy day in the future. But for most people, I'd say there's no point in stocking up on Shadowlands materials. If you want to buy anything, it's Transmog. In my opinion, that's the best group of items. But there doesn't seem to be that many great opportunities that I've found, but I'm not the Transmog expert. As for gold making right now, I honestly don't have any good advice. I don't see any great markets to enter. Maybe like speed gear with the pure air sail extensions, that sells pretty well and for pretty high profit margin. Item level 262 gear and legendary still sell, but if you're not already in the market, I think you're unlikely to make back your initial investment before Dragonflight rolls around. So if you're going to do something these days, this last month of Shadowlands, my suggestion would be to farm and to farm all the expansions pretty much. Farm for materials that are highly used in long-term viable recipes, so like ghost iron, stuff like that, or farm for specific rare transmog battle pets or mounts. Obviously, I generally prefer mounts, but I'm not an expert on farming old zones either, because that's not something I do. So those are really the top options for like things to do right now. You can also try to sell like consumables or whatever. But yeah, I generally don't like advising entering an expansions like power increasing markets during the final month. And the power increasing markets like top end gear, consumables, etc. That's where I like to make my gold. That's what I focus on, and most of those markets are petering out. They're not fully dead yet, but they are on the deathbed. They are the terminal phase, and you're better off keeping your gold, being ready to go when Dragonflight rolls around, which is something we'll start covering now, essentially what you can do when Dragonflight round. Luckily, we have some brand new experiences from an expansion launch with Wrath Classic. So if you haven't ever done gold making in an expansion launch before, then prepare to have a lot of fun, because that's the most fun part of gold making in WoW by a significant margin. So Dragonflight launch, that's going to be a blast. Good luck. Have fun.